What's it gonna be? I think it's gonna be open conversation. I think it's gonna be me and you hanging out, which is fun. I think it's gonna be topics that people need to hear about.
Yeah.
And we obviously have a couple topics that we're ready to kind of roll out.
Give a few.
Mental health, CBD, student athletes. I'm excited. We're gonna have fun.
Well, can you introduce yourself first?
I'm D.Rey Reynolds.
Hey. And I'm Avery Mars.
Who's the hey for?
I was hyping you up. Yeah, well, this is our show, POSTGRADS at the Plat.
Yes.
Behind us is our wonderful view.
Yeah.
We're just gonna have some conversations that we think need to be had. And today we're gonna talk about sexuality. Deep, touches a lot of different areas. So,
Okay.
Sexuality.
Sexuality, well, we gotta start where we know best. Sexuality in sports is a taboo thing, still to this day.
To talk about. Yeah.
On the men's side. It's low key sometimes on the women's side because of the other areas that, you know, the conversation seems to spill into.
Right.
But we both play basketball. So let's talk about the sexuality culture. Just a smidge.
Just a little bit. Yeah, I mean, like you said, I think it's different in men and women's sports. So I'm going to speak from the experience of being a woman in women athletics, and you're going to speak from more of like a men perspective. There's different areas to talk about it, right? Like amongst teams, people talk about it. There's fans and those trolls and everyone that wants to comment on women's sports and sexuality, especially at a higher level like the WNBA. You've seen a lot of dialogue around it. But again, I'm going to speak from my perspective, which is the college sphere. I feel like it's becoming more and more common to have the conversation and be accepting of people who are homosexual or like whoever they like. And I think that's like a culture that teams need to start developing. But I think sexuality is such a big part of people's lives that it's hard to not be accepting and still be a team that works together. We've talked about this too, like on and off the court, right? There's different things, but I think it's important that teams are at least understanding of one another. And I think the women's side is doing a little bit of a better job on that one.
It's doing a much better job. Think about the WNBA and how many players are, you know, outwardly gay or bisexual. And then like in the NBA, you know, like Mr. Collins a couple years ago, like he came out, you know, when the Hawks, he comes out, he says he's gay, and then he turns into a where are they now? Right.
And why do you think that is? Do you think they shush them, like, make them be quiet? Or not to laugh, but like, in a sense, you know? How do you...
It's going to say blackball.
Cut that out.
I feel like in a atmosphere where masculinity and ego, quite frankly, as an athlete, one of your best friends is your ego. You got to think that, you know, I'm the shit. You have to think that you have to know that. In an area, you know, there's so much of that, it's only a matter of time until masculinity is something that's very upheld. But when somebody brings something that doesn't fit that mold in, it makes people uncomfortable. Dennis Rodman, his documentary recently came out, and he said he was never gay. But you see how many people backed away from him because they thought he was.
Right. Because of how he dressed, the earrings, the colored hair, all these stereotypes that go along with gay men.
It was things that made people very uncomfortable. People don't like being uncomfortable. And then men in general, you think about how many women are okay saying they're lesbian, you know, versus a guy saying I'm gay. Like it's almost like those are two completely different words. At the end of the day, a woman that likes a woman is gay. A man that likes a man is gay. But it's another word. You know what I mean? And we all know the word that people use for men that they feel as though like men. It's a derogatory term. You know what I mean? People say it and they get mad at somebody in traffic. People say it in the game. So it's like, I just feel like amongst men it's not as accepted. I'm not here to say it should or it shouldn't be. I don't think the NBA or quite frankly any, you know, professional sports league on the men's side is doing a good job of that. Because I think they'd be surprised how many people actually are. He
said he bet like 10 to 20% of people were gay in the NBA. And it's a bold statement, but I think it holds a lot of weight, and I think people might have heard the number and were a little shocked or whatever they were. You know, it depends how like into the league and how much you know about it. I think kind of determines your perspective on that statistic. They also said stuff about how players now are dressing like Dennis Rodman was. Which is more like feminine, you know, or even caring more about what you look like. I feel like it's automatically, for some men, it's like, oh no, like you said, it's that derogatory word, you know, like you want to label people, and I think that's the issue, right? Is the labeling. Like why do we need to label people, you know? And I think, like you said, it's definitely different on the men and women's side for sure. But do you think masculinity plays a part? this idea of what you need to be as a man, or like
yeah, like it's not what you need to be as a man, it's what you need to represent as a man. Because quite frankly, it doesn't make you any less of a man.
Right.
You know, I know people who are gay and and bisexual, and it's funny, like even bisexual is something that a lot of men will straight up tell you they're not comfortable with. Like the idea that someone could like both, they're like, what? Like look how people treat Frank Ocean. Obviously they're not listening to his music. But the toxic masculinity, and I know that word is thrown around like these days, but I think the idea that like it's more of, I think it's toxic masculinity comes in when it's what you should represent as a man.
Right.
You know, what you should, the image you should portray as a man, not what you are as a man. You know, you can have a gay guy that takes care of his family and handles all his business and carries himself with the utmost pride and respect. And then you can have a guy who, is claiming to be, completely straight and degenerate. You know what I mean? That doesn't make, to me, it's like the man is the one that provides.
Right, which is also up for debate. The man provides, but that's very different.
You know what I mean?
That's very different.
Provide the things a man needs to provide.
No, I understand.
Let me say, I know.
Yeah, watch your step.
I said it's 2019. I don't want to piss anybody off.
I mean, then you have the locker room dynamic, which I think adds to the sports discussion. Is like in the locker room, which I'm sure you can attest to. Like those are some of the best moments you have with your team. Like. Yeah. Whether it's talking about the game or it's talking about things off the court, like that's where you like find connection with your teammates and like you form those relationships. So I think on the men's side, like there's that, if there's a gay man in the locker room, what are we talking about? What are we saying? Getting dressed, like all those things I think men look more into, whereas women just kind of go about their day. At least that's what I've experienced.
That's insecurity. I understand. I understand. You don't understand how much I hate the concept of insecurity. It's like somebody like, oh, like you hurt my self-esteem. It's like, it's your self-esteem.
Right.
Shout out Cat Williams. But no, I think it's insecurity because, quite frankly, all right. So let's say on the men's side, I'll speak from personal experience. I was in college all 4 years. In the third year, I found out somebody that had been in there for a year or two was gay. It wouldn't make me uncomfortable because it's like,
this is hypothetical.
Okay. But I'm saying you like if that person had never made a pass at me or never said anything that would make me discouraged, obviously you're gonna be probably a little more cautious when you're talking about that subject, because now you understand that you might not know something you're speaking on. People speak very freely when they know they're not gonna be held accountable for it. So if I found that out, it just, as long as we respect each other's space and comfortability, and you understand that that's not for me, and I understand that certain things, certain ways I think aren't for you, what's the issue? I think that it comes into play when you're insecure yourself as a man. It's like, oh, I don't want to be looked at, and I don't want to do this, that, and the third with that. It's like, yo, if he go out there on the floor, that was my toxic masculinity voice. If y'all are teammates, and y'all support each other in the classroom, student athletes, obviously, y'all support each other in the classroom, y'all take care of y'all stuff in y'all college community, and y'all both handle y'all business on the court, what else do we have to agree on?
I think too, another thing that we should touch on, which I think plays a big part in it, is like college athletics is very diverse, right? In terms of different demographics, financial status, how people are raised, all these different things. But I think it's important to highlight which cultures are more accepting. In athletics, especially basketball, we're predominantly black. That is a statistic all around. NBA, same thing. WNBA as well. And I just think it's important to talk about the black culture's acceptance of it, and maybe other cultures. I don't want to group people. I don't think that's ever good, but I think it's definitely plays a part in it.
That's what we know, the black and the white culture. I think both of us have had enough white friends and teammates to understand that culture. I feel come through both of those cultures through and through. I don't consider myself completely black. My mother's people from like over North Africa somewhere, but the way we think isn't like how people I grew up with. I never met anybody growing up that thought how we thought. So culturally, I don't know what it's like to be through and through black. You know what I mean? I feel like with white people, and if I'm wrong, or speaking out of terms, just let me know. It's way more accepted. I don't know why, but it's way more accepted.
And these are kind of stereotypes. Like we should just put that out there, because like you said, we don't know, and we're not speaking from a place of like, this is exactly how it is, and every family's the same, because we all know that every family's different. But I think white people are more accepting, and I'm not sure why. I think it's I think it's various reasons. But I think the Black community's ties with the church, to be honest. Like for me, that's what I see is I think people that are Black and very religious and very invested in their faith struggle with the idea of their children being homosexual. And I think it's very extreme on the men's side. You know, I think Black communities are, just like all communities are, more accepting of a daughter that's a lesbian versus their son that's gay, you know? I think that's for various reasons. I don't think we can pinpoint one, you know? But I definitely think there's a difference in cultures. So. And I'm sure other cultures as well, you know, different religions feel different ways about it. I know at St. Joe's we just had a pastor come and speak on behalf of the LGBT community, and he was met with protesters on City Ave, you know? So I think there's people that are becoming more open to it in various faiths, but there's always going to be people that are against it, and everyone is allowed their opinion, right? Like that's important to say, is like no matter what you think, no matter what we think, like everyone should have their say. I do believe that, but I think it comes when it becomes with like hate and that like insecurity and the disgust, like that's when it's kind of like, all right, like we're all human, like let's get that right, like let's get that straight. We're all human.
I don't get it because it's just, we've seen time and time again throughout human history, forget Black history or white history and American history, human history, when you suppress something, it
just blooms. It just comes through,
exactly. So it's just like, I don't, like for example, there are people who feel like, there are people who honestly feel like the world is ending because of everything that's going on in the LGBTQ community. I'm not saying plus. You know, there are people who feel like, you know, the world is ending. Because between that and certain things going on, they feel like this is it. And it's just like, first of all, these things have been around since the beginning of time, just like, you know, everything else has. It's just, it's been suppressed for so long. Obviously there's I don't want to call it a surplus, but obviously there's a lot of it going on, because it's like people feel liberated for the first time. Like you think of,
people can be themselves.
You think exactly, and I think
and
anybody,
that's in all spheres,
exactly. I think anybody who had to ever compress being themselves understand what it feels like when you get out of that. Like you think of, prime example, Caitlyn Jenner, Bruce, whatever you know, whatever you want to say. You hear the stories of, you know, when he was Bruce back in the 70s and 80s and 90s and things that, you know, Bruce's family would pick up on, and then you hear, you know, Caitlyn tell these stories. She talks about, you know, the same type of things. It was like, that was always there. And
eventually, like you said, I think people are just comfortable now. They're able to be themselves in whatever way that is, right? And I think the internet has kind of played a part in that too. Is like there's different groups where people can come together and talk about stuff. Do you think sports assists in that, like, comfortability, or do you think it's like a deterrent? You know, like I think I'm speaking from the women's side. You look at WNBA, you look at the U.S. Women's National Team, who I follow just recently a lot, obviously, because they won the World Cup. But it's like you think of Megan Rapinoe, right? Like she's using sports as a way to be like, this is who I am. You guys, like, I don't care if you accept it or not. Like, she made a statement that, like, you can't win a championship without gays on your team. You know, like, bold things like that was said by her because now she has a platform as a World Cup winner and now a FIFA Player of the Year. Do you think it's a deterrent, or do you think it's assisting in people being more open to it?
I will go as far as to say it depends on the sport.
True. I don't mind that.
I'm about to say, at the end of the day, nobody wins against progression. Change always wins. And the leagues and sports that are willing to allow and adapt to change, just like the people who allow and adapt to change are the ones that keep growing and keep evolving, versus the ones that don't. It fades away. Cities, you can apply this to our world in every way, are going to be the ones that flourish in the future. Prime example, NFL. I see in the NFL culture, I don't see how that can be outwardly accepted unless there are some drastic changes made to the leadership. Because the leadership,
white men,
are just
older men.
Older white men are just like, F that. And quite frankly, what kills me is, then you hear stories about those people who condemn it publicly, privately and don't.
Because they feel, it's odd, they feel so strongly about something.
Yeah.
It's like,
it's like,
you know, and
do
then
you
you
really?
and then you start to see,
or is it hitting a nerve for you?
Because that's their way of dealing with it being suppressed and it being who they, you know what I mean? Like,
like it's hitting a nerve for you. So I think the NBA is in a very interesting spot because it's coming up on being not only America's but the world sport.
Yes.
You know, it's rapidly moving toward, in the next 20 years it's going to be soccer and NBA, and it's just going to be like, it's going to be blow for blow. Depending on which one, you know, evolves and changes. But I think the NBA, it's a little more accepted. We see how some NBA players choose to express themselves, like we spoke on, like, you know, their style of dress. Like, to be quite frank, there are certain players in the NBA, if they were today say, I'm gay, a lot of people wouldn't be surprised because of the way that they present themselves. You know what I mean? Because of certain tendencies that they
fashion
have.
is always put hand in hand, I feel like, with sexuality sometimes. I mean, like you said, the NBA, so there's Magic Johnson, right, whose son is, I'm not going to label what he is, but he's definitely gay. And then you have now Dwayne Wade, who's coming out and support him and Gabrielle Union of their son, who at a young age has shown that, you know, he might be going a different direction, you know, and I think their acceptance of it, and like Dwayne Wade, he partnered with some type of LGBTQ, I don't know what it necessarily was. It wasn't a community or some type of thing that he partnered with it. And I think that acceptance just in his own family shines a light on it in general. And it's like, you know, if Dwayne Wade is accepting of his child, like maybe someone else can accept their child too. Because at the end of the day, that's what matters, right? It's family, friends, like everyone else. I know it's very public, the NBA, like you said, it's becoming that sport. So I think everyone's looking at it, like everyone's watching the NBA, what they're wearing, what they're doing, where they're eating. I mean, Taco Tuesday was the highlight of social media, and it was about a taco and LeBron James, you know, like very simple, but and it's still holding weight. Like, so they're watching their every move. So can you imagine if LeBron James, Dwayne Wade, all these people back acceptance? Just